get going. I hope you're all doing well. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's having a good week so far. We have a couple of key things to discuss. I think, what do you want to start with, Fabio? Are we going to start with company stuff? Are we going to start a bit with the review of 2022 from a company perspective in a sense of transparency report? Or do you want to talk about what, I don't know, it depends. I don't know what people want to hear more. Probably want to hear some thoughts on BUSD, Binance. Is the world going to end? Are we having UFOs over the US? I don't know, what's going on? What do you want to start with?
We can do industry rumors and thought first, and maybe in between a cake part, and then in the end some markets.
Sounds good. Great. So I don't know what's happening in the markets. I think everything's quite boring right now. Huh? Not much happening. I think it's boring. Tell me.
except the UFO sightings. Like the only issue there is like I'm big on UFOs. Like I dream about this stuff. I would love for aliens to visit us. I'm a big believer. The only issue I have is in like 20 years of technical revolutions, we have like the best smartphone cameras ever, but every time it comes to a UFO sighting, it is pixelated. You can see nothing, and that's devastating. I really wish for some good UFO footage.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let's cut that kind of short. I think yesterday, Monday, I mean, I think it's still an interesting discussion point on why the US took so long, on the one hand, to kind of make this clear that these are not of alien origin. I mean, yesterday came out and kind of said that. I thought that was quite weird. It's fine that, I think, in my opinion, it's fine that the US comes out and says, we don't know exactly what they are. Calling them unidentified flying objects, I get it. That's like the official term. I still think that really causes a lot of rumors in the news. And then, just leaving everything open and really riding that kind of media wave. I don't know. I just feel that's weird. That's probably the stuff that weirds me out the most, right? Because to the way I just see this, and that's obviously just me, I see this as the US wanted to do like a military win here and kind of said like, hey, there's this balloon. They made a big deal out of it because they saw this as a win. China is completely fought back. US got really surprised. Then people really got weirded out because, like, where's all this stuff coming from? They're underestimating that this is quite normal, like that these balloons get sent around all the time. I mean, the US is pretty much the biggest spying nation in the world. I don't think anyone doubts that or would dispute that. And then, there's more attention on these balloons that are normally really difficult to find. And then obviously they find like 3 more, and then the US finds some. And I don't know, to me, that's just, I sit here and I'm like, why is there a burger about a nothing burger? What are they trying to hide right now? What should be in the news right now that they don't want to be in the news? I don't know. That's always me. So I don't know how you see this. I don't know what else is there. I think that's kind of the entire thing. I don't know. To me, that's a nothing burger. And for some weird reason, everyone made a big deal out of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's actually about nothing. But I don't know. There is this tension between China and the US. This definitely plays into this. We probably don't know what's going on behind the curtains. But yeah, it's some of the balloons, some sightings, and But we might want to keep it brief with the Illuminati, UFO, alien things. But Paxos could be an alien name. Maybe we can touch a little bit on Paxos and BUSD and Binance. Should I start, or do you want to dive straight in?
Why don't you start? Give a bit the underlying kind of basis, and then what's going on, what are the rumors, and let's kind of dive in a bit.
Yeah, so there's a part I understand and there's a part I don't understand. So you have Paxos, an entity regulated in the US, New York. They issue and destroy a US dollar stablecoin, BUSD, which is the Binance stablecoin. And Binance does this weird thing where you deposit USD Tether or USDC and they auto-convert it into BUSD. And there was lots of things happening with BUSD within the January pump. Like you could really see that a majority of the buying volume came out of BUSD. And now you have this whole regulatory thermonuclear crackdown in the US happening, which a lot of people don't really understand. So the part that I understand is, okay, they want to do something. They see a need for regulation, maybe because of what was happening because of like all the things connected with FTX. What I don't understand is they are calling, I'm not 100% sure if BUSD qualifies as a security, and they are calling it a security. I know that the New York state regulators, they are tough. They banned proof of mining as one of the only states in the US. They are kind of they have a heavy stance on regulation compared to other states. And I'm not 100% sure what the impact on Binance is, because Binance is like this monster outside of the US that works together with this entity within. So the repercussions of that, I'm not 100% sure. And a lot of things like my Telegram bots and announcement channels and Twitter was full of Binance FUD yesterday. And I always take this with a grain of salt. Probably half of what's out there is not true. But then also I'm kind of hurt, or I'm kind of I have a little bit of a PTSD trauma from what happened with Luna and FTX, where you're like, okay, when you read the news, you actually want to be fast. So, and I guess a lot of other people have that as well, because you could really see biggest volume since last year on BUSD pairs. So people are actually kind of following up on the thoughts. That's a little bit, at least from my perspective, what I saw happening.
Yeah, what I love the way you describe it is, I think that's how probably the majority of people kind of experience it, right? They're going to have kind of similar questions. They're going to have similar kind of concerns. I love that. I think people are going to listen to that and they really feel kind of, okay, yeah, I can totally see that as well. Let me try to fill in a few things that I know for sure, and then let me try to also be very clear on things that I don't know. So, okay, Paxos, they started with their own stablecoin USDP first. It's audited. It's probably the most secure stablecoin that you could have in the space. Because of that, a lot of people actually also were always a bit worried about actually listing USDP. I think where Paxos was always good was just the regulatory side. I think where they were not so good was the business development side, and that's why USDP is not as well accepted. I think their market cap is in the single-digit billions. It's not like a tiny one, but it's not nowhere where the big boys are. They white labeled that, and I just want to explain what that means. That basically means they go copy paste everything that they did for USDP and offer that to companies to kind of use as well. And they did this with a lot of companies, but obviously a lot of the white labeling is just like when, I know if you notice about Amazon. So on Amazon, you can just buy a lot of white label products. It's no issue. But the biggest thing about the white labeling is the marketing. And so Binance obviously had this massive marketing power. If they would white label this product, they could market it really well. And they then white labeled Paxos's stablecoin and called it BUSD, which is, honestly, it has nothing to do with Binance. So this is like, let's say you go and you sell something on Amazon yourself, but you sell something that is built in China. Now, I understand everything goes in your brand, but actually you're not building it, you're not responsible for it. Everything actually comes from someone else, in this case from Paxos. And so this is like fact. So Binance actually has zero to do with the dollars that are being accepted to put back as collateral. The only one who can mint and destroy BUSD is Paxos, actually. Now, one key concern that comes up with this is always that Paxos issues BUSD on the Ethereum as an ERC20. And then Binance obviously doesn't care so much about Ethereum. They want this stuff to happen on the Binance Smart Chain. So they then bridge BUSD on Binance over to the Binance Smart Chain. And so now this is where it gets tricky to talk about responsibilities and to talk about who is in charge of what. Because the regulator in New York said nothing about Binance. The regulator in New York only went to Paxos and said, guys, there's some issue happening. We don't know the exact details of that. We know that Circle was somehow involved as a whistleblower, and your BUSD are under collateralized. So you don't have enough US dollars in your bank account in comparison to the BUSD that are out there. Now, How Circle knows that, what are the details of that, is unclear, because how do you know how much dollars Paxos actually has in their bank accounts is not clear. The regulator seems to say nothing about Binance, but what a lot of people speculate about, obviously, are a couple of things. The biggest question is BUSD under collateralized or not? That's actually the only question. If it wasn't, nothing happens. Paxos made this statement on Twitter where they said, no, it was like everything was fine. And so the regulator says nothing about Binance. The other question is, maybe Binance had something to do with it more from a reputation standpoint. So a lot of people kind of allege that, and that could be, but I mean, nothing could be done if BUSD was collateralized. And the other question is it an issue that Binance bridges BUSD from Ethereum onto the Binance Smart Chain? Because obviously there, Binance could just mint BUSD unlimited. And if people then have the same trust towards these BUSD on the Binance Smart Chain versus those on Ethereum, that's where the real issue lies. And the regulator hasn't said anything about this. We don't know if that is the main issue. It's just curious to me, and these are probably a few things that are truly curious to me. Why does CC write on Twitter, and I retweeted that they are planning to discontinue BUSD's focus from next year? So they want to phase this out. And to me, this is really curious, because let's say what I would assume happened, right? Again, and I'm giving everyone the benefit of the doubt here. So I want to be very, very clear. I also made this tweet on Twitter. Neither myself nor our company has any material exposure to any of these parties. So not Paxos, not Binance, not BUSD, no USDP, none of that, right? So these things, to me, I mean, I hope none of them have issues. If they had issues and it was an isolated event, it wouldn't affect us. But obviously, if Binance went down, I mean, this would have a massive effect on the entire industry. I just want to be very clear on this. So still, I'm giving everyone the benefit of the doubt. If you have doubts about USDP, BUSD, Binance, Paxos, or whatever, do what you should always do, which is take your funds, switch them into something that you trust, either self-custody or go to a platform that you trust, right? So same applies here. No one knows. I don't know. Fabio doesn't know. No one here knows. No one on social media knows, right? The only few people that really know is probably going to be CC, is probably a few people at Paxos, and is the regulator. And maybe the regulator doesn't even know, right? So let's be very, very clear about this. So we're just speculating. I'm giving everyone the benefit of the doubt. I'm assuming that Paxos had some white labeling issues from a processing side. Why do I assume this? Because otherwise the regulator would go and say, you also have to stop minting and minting USDP. Now, since that's not what the regulator said, it seems it's something very specific to BUSD. Since the regulator didn't mention Binance at all, so there was no focus on Binance, it was purely on Paxos, to me it seems it had some processing issues there. I don't think this was massive. I don't think there was any fraudulence behind it. To me, that's going to be a slap on the wrist. Fine, let's calculate it out. I mean, we can do the math, right? $18 billion are deposited or should be deposited. I don't know, at the moment at current interest rates, Paxos is probably going to make 4 to 5% on that. They're probably going to have a revenue share with Binance on it. I don't know what the split on that is, but I would assume Paxos in 2022 made probably 100 million. I'm really pulling these numbers out of my bottom. So I think 100 million in revenue. That would be reasonable, right? 100 million. Okay, the regulator is going to say you made 100 million revenue. Let me fine you 25% on that. So here's a $25 million fine, significant fine, but still cost of doing business. Everything continues. So it should be in everyone's interest now. Pay the fine. Probably Paxos says to Binance and says, hey, listen, guys, like, I don't know what went on, but you guys have to share that fine with me, I would assume, right? So it's more like like you win some, you lose some, let's do this together. Why would Binance immediately go out and say, we're discontinuing, we're switching everything to others? Just curious, right? So I don't understand that. The assessment of making BUSD a security, to me, actually, like people were arguing about how does the Howey test kind of fit to that. But to be honest, it actually fits 100% as long as BUSD was truly under collateralized, because there's 4 rules to the Howey test and all of them have to fit. First one, it has to be an investment with money. It is, because the only way you can buy BUSD is actually via dollars, right? So that's fine. It's an investment into a common enterprise, which in this case, you could argue BUSD is branded by Binance. So it's 100, like it really kind of completely lies there. It's built on the work around others. In this case, it really ties into Binance. And now comes the fourth point. It's our expectation of profits. And now comes the absolute crucial part here. People always argue, how can there be an expectation of profits if it's $1 and it stays at $1? Well, the way the regulator would argue this, and again, I'm not saying this is correct, I'm just saying if I were the regulator, always try to flip it, always as a good decision maker, you can argue the other side, right? You need to consider the other side. So the way I would argue this is, well, actually, the stablecoin is only worth 98 cents or 99 cents because that's how much you have been collateralized. But you're selling this thing as if it were $1. And the only way you can get it to $1 is by you doing work, by you branding this and doing really a lot of work, by taking a lot of fiat deposits. And that's how you're raising this to $1. Now, is this argument going to hold? I have no idea, but that's probably how I would argue this from the regulator standpoint, right? And I think Paxos sits there and says, difficult kind of, I don't know, right? And kind of backs down. I'm just assuming, I have no idea. And so that's kind of things that I know, things that I don't know. If everything is as I expect it to be, it should be a nothing burger. I think Tether is going to win out of this. Circle is going to win out of this. I think the algo hybrid stablecoins are going to win out of this. Things like DUSD. I know these things all still have to be worked out. I get it. I understand that DUSD is super volatile. I get it. But these things are going to win because the pure over collateralized stablecoins like DAI, first of all, they have Circle or USDC as backing. Plus, they are so capital intensive. They're not going to take the win from this. So I don't know. That's just where I'm coming from. Things that you want to jump in, things that you saw, comments, things that you feel I'm wrong on that are not clear.
It's pretty clear, the explanation, especially what I'm especially thankful for is the security argument that you made, where you went through the 4 points of the Howey test, because I had exactly the same question. It's $1, so how can it pass the Howey test? But you explained it perfectly. So the question I asked myself, and I guess the most important question for people that still want to continue with Binance is there is this discrepancy. So I think 6 months ago, 7 months ago, during the summer, they did this double down on BUSD. So they went and they said, we're going to auto convert USDT, we're going to auto convert USDC. Now, CZ is backpedaling and saying, okay, we're not going to do this. The question I ask myself is, if they stop issuing and destroying BUSD, how is this going to continue? And are they just going to switch back to another stablecoin like USDC or USDT? Yeah, and I also probably, and this is also what I wish for, I don't think this will blow up. Because Paxos is a regulated entity. They probably have the money they claim to have. And then it's just finding a solution on how to continue. But with all of these regulation things that are going on, and I'm going to bring up something else that happened last week, is I have some follow-up questions. Like, I get that this is all happening. So, for example, with Kraken and the SEC that jumped in there, my follow-up question there is, yeah, but Kraken has a substantial amount of Ethereum staked. Now they're going to discontinue the service. What happens to the ETH? Because they cannot be unstaked. The code is not even written. So and the same is with the BUSD. What happens with the BUSD that are already in circulations? How do they resolve these situations? And these are the points that I don't really understand. I try to do some research, some Googling. I follow some Twitter accounts and I read there, but nobody seems to have an answer.
What's their opinions? What's their thoughts?
So a few people, they were practically saying before ZZ put out that tweet that if they would continue to do this auto-converting thing, that this would be a massive black box. And I would agree, because if they just continue to auto-convert USDC, then it's practically a collateralized stable coin, but not with real dollars, but with other stable coins, which is kind of a weird system. But I don't think they want to do that. But then at the same time, is Paxos, did they already stop issuing? And did Binance stop the autoconvert at the same time? What is in the period in between? Like, there's so many questions I have that I couldn't find an answer yet. It's definitely a weird situations
Okay.
that everybody's in.
To me, I think that auto convert thing, I really don't understand why people make such a big deal out of it. The only thing you need to do with the auto convert is you need to have the liquidity on all ends. So whatever stable coin you're converting into each other, you just need to have, and that could be, I mean, they could be right that this could have been the issue, right? They just need to have massive liquidity that they are basically providing for free. Because what they need to have is they need to have a huge pool of USDC, BUSD, USDP, because they also accepted Paxos, and I think they had Tether. So I think these were the 4 stable coins. And basically what they simply had to have, they need to have a lot of dollars that they could instantly move around and send to the various providers to say, hey, I need 50 million of Tether. In return, here's my $50 million. Where do they have the $50 million from? Well, by sending USDC to Circle and getting $50 million from them. And they just need to be super uber liquid in moving this around. The theory behind it is actually very simple, and I don't think a big deal. I disagree that it's a black box because Binance has zero ability to issue tokens. So they cannot issue BUSD, they cannot issue USDP, they cannot issue Tether, they cannot issue USDC. They cannot issue any of those, right? So in theory, it should be no problem. The only question is, do they have the liquidity? And so what could happen? So let me just walk you through a scenario, right? Let's say they work with Paxos. Paxos, again, the question here is, who is whose partner? Like, is Paxos relying on Binance, or is Binance relying on Paxos? Who knows, right? But what is the power dynamic there? So imagine this, right? Imagine, again, I'm just flipping the side here. Imagine you're Binance and you're like, hey, Paxos, like, if you don't play like the way I want you to play, we're going to quit that contract and your USDP is worthless because no one is going to use that thing. We're going to delist it, right? And no one's going to use it anymore. And yes, we're going to lose BUSD. Who cares, right? We will always find another way. So you need us as your partner, right? Let's imagine this way. Now imagine, because of all this conversion, there's suddenly a lot of stuff happening, right? Like a lot of inflows. It goes really, really haywire, chaotic. Because Binance was converting them at 1-for-1. There was no slippage, nothing, right? Like insanely amazing customer experience. And now there's this huge demand for BUSD. So they go to Paxos and say, hey, listen, guys, we need 3 billion Pax. We need 3 billion BUSD. And Paxos is like, well, give me the money. And let's imagine Binance sends the money, but it takes a little bit, right? It doesn't even have to take long. Let's imagine it takes 24 hours, which is nothing to send $3 billion in the dinosaur banking world, right? It's nothing. And Binance starts pressuring Paxos and says, listen, guys, here's the transfer confirmation. Here's the wire confirmation. 3 billion are coming in. I need the BUSD now. Customers are waiting. They are bombarding community. They're bombarding customer support. If we cannot have those 3 billion BUSD, I'm going to have this bad user experience and people are not going to buy this and it's not going to work. And so Paxos at some point gets nervous. Again, this is like stuff that I'm just making. I have no clue if this is, I'm just kind of envisioning it, right? They're getting pressured and Paxos says, okay, great. Mint the BUSD. We're getting the funds in. I can see this. I can trust this. Why would Binance lie to me here? Here, let me send out 3 billion BUSD. And so for these 24 hours, there was this massive, basically, gap in one thing not being in yet, one thing being out. So that's just how I could envision it. That black box, there's not really a black box in the end because I cannot mint and destroy myself. So I'm 100% relying on actually these other partners. So yeah, how does it go on? I mean, if I were Paxos right now, I would go to the regulator and I would straight away say, hey, February 2024, because this is what Paxos said, end of February next year, we're going to discontinue BUSD. What I would do is I would just say, let's merge the two together. So USDP and BUSD comes out of the same pool, because if I were Paxos, I would know 100% that these funds are collateralized. So I'm assuming they're collateralized. Again, benefit of the doubt here. I would just put it together, and then in the future, whatever you're doing, it's just USDP, but it just comes out of the same pool. That's how I would continue. If I were in Binance shoes, I don't understand why Binance doesn't want to continue anymore. Maybe it's because of the regulatory pressure. I think I said this many times already. I think Binance's biggest mistake was to try to become a bank. The way they won was by always doing this gray area stuff. They started in 2017. They listed every altcoin out there, whether it was legit or not. And that's what made them win. And now they're really trying to go that super uber legit route. And I just don't know if that is the route that they should be going. I don't think they have the. I don't think they have the backing. I don't think they have the funding capital. I don't think they have the history. And a lot of these things are really important to play in the leagues of Kraken or Coinbase. I just don't think Binance has that. And if they try, they will always get picked apart because they have that baggage. And I think if the insiders in the industry, they know that. I think the regulator knows that. And as soon as Binance kind of tries to cross that chasm over to the legit kind of businesses like Kraken and Coinbase in the US, I'm really talking specifically US right now, they will always get picked apart. And I would probably just assume that what Binance just has to admit is, just like what we're seeing in the tech sector with TikTok and so on, if you're funded by Chinese money, if you have a lot of Chinese backing, a lot of the Chinese origins, you're going to have the same issues going into the US, just like the American companies all have issues going into China. And you just have to respect that. And I think that's what we're seeing here.
I guess, from a user perspective, is what I would reiterate is what you already said. If you lose sleep over this, if you think about this too much, just get your funds off Binance or exchange your BUSD into another stablecoin. And there it comes down to a bit of personal preference. I don't like to hold stablecoins at all. I rather hold the real US dollar. But if I would hold a stablecoin, probably USDC, backed by Circle, and they're deeply rooted within the regulatory system in the US. But yeah, I guess usually I don't want to make any claims because it was a lot of people were calling for Luna FUD or for FTX FUD as well, like a few days before everything blew up. But I would give it the probability for Binance to blow up. I would consider this a very, very low probability. But on the same hand, I'm also not willing to take a risk, even if I would put the probability at less than 5%. I don't want to take a 5% risk. So yeah,
I mean, taking a
don't
5% risk if your upside is a potential 100x, right? That's like an interesting kind of trade if you do it with a small part of your portfolio. But like if the upside is just holding the coins there.
Yeah.
I agree. I think one thing, I'm not sure if I mentioned this here or somewhere else. I also agree. I think the odds of Binance being illiquid are way smaller than for any other platform out there, with the exception of Kraken and Coinbase, in my opinion. However, their biggest issue is the regulatory issues. This is what Binance's biggest weakness is, because of its history, because the way it got built, the way it's from, the funding it had, a lot of the very questionable deals that they had at very early stage around ICOs, where the original funding for the ICO came from. So a lot of this, I think, is baggage that today people are not so aware of anymore. The regulator is, competitors are, and so as soon as, well, Binance tries to kind of cross over, the competitors start spitting into their soup, understandably. So, yeah. Did you hear this talk about? Golden Cross, Death Cross? What's going on there? Did you see that?
Yeah,
You're the chart expert. What's going on?
So what is a little bit devastating, there were these core truths to Bitcoin charting. 200 weekly AMA, never been broken, always been support, no close below it, no close below all-time highs on a 4-year time frame, and no death cross where I think the 50 or the 100 weekly goes below the 200. And all of these things happen for the first time, like the last 6 months or so. So if you're strong on technicals, and if you held these beliefs as true, then this is devastating. But of course, even the hardcore chartists among us, they kind of changed their opinions along the way.
If the
as
line
do
is
I.
not, if you don't like the line, you just figure out a new line, all right?
Exactly. And it, I
Exactly.
guess so. Okay, let me briefly touch on a few things because I'm more in the camp of the technicals have validity, and I also like, for example, a lot of people said, yeah, the stock to flow model and Plan B and all of these things that we just mentioned. So nothing of that is true. Every model will be broken. So one thing to add there is the problem that we saw within the last cycle was the same problem that other assets has as well, and I would call it a paper Bitcoin futures problem. So the asset is not really like a lot of exchanges and a lot of platforms. They don't actually own and hold Bitcoin. They use derivatives, they use futures, they use paper Bitcoin, and we saw that when FTX blew up, they didn't have a single Bitcoin. They were trading like crazy, and in the end, when they blew up, they didn't have a single Bitcoin. And I ask myself seriously, what would have happened to the Bitcoin price on the upside and on the downside if all of these exchanges and all of these trading platforms, derivative platforms, future platforms actually needed to hold the underlying asset and couldn't just over leverage it? Because the issue with the 2021 cycle was leverage. There was so much leverage in the system, and nobody actually held the underlying asset. So, and on the downside, we are all paying for massive risk taking, for over leveraging. All these platforms, all these issues we experienced the last year were institutions that got deep into leverage. And so yeah, I see both sides a little bit, but of course, if you were a strong believer in technicals, you you kind of need to re-elaborate the situation.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on that, I think you know that, is always that I yeah, see this more like astrology for men. Or if you're watching this as a woman, the 5% of crypto users that are women, also astrology for women, but I would say astrology for men. Gives people like that fake sense of, I know what could happen, and they're always going to find a reason why something is the way it should be. So, um, I so where I fundamentally disagree with a lot of the sentiment out there. If we had no paper Bitcoins, if we had no altcoins, if we had none of these things that today all kind of blew up, right? So like Terra Luna, FTX, at the end, the reason these things got so big was because they actually drew a lot of hype. This hype would have never been able had they been 100% legit, right? I mean, I think very different. Terra Luna blew up because of its fundamentals, very different. FTX because of it was not legit. And I think FTX could have never done that, right? They could have never done all these things. So where I fundamentally disagree is I actually think, I know that especially those that are like hardcore Bitcoin maxis, also a lot of the Ethereum maxis, right? They're fundamentally against these other altcoins, these platforms. They think they are net negative to the business. And I actually think, just like money printing, the dollar, like the weakening dollar is the only driver that like most of these assets have actually seen over the last 5 years. Altcoins are one of the major reasons why Bitcoin had such a strong movement, especially in 2017. Ethereum, right? Why did Ethereum do like 400x in 2017? I tell you why. 400? That's incorrect. I would say 200. Yeah, 200x. 200x in 2017. It is because of all the ICOs. Now, I understand that all these ICOs, 99.9% of the ICOs were like problematic. That doesn't mean that this is what drove a lot of the hype. And so it always comes down to the same question, right? What is better? Is better linear, very slow growth, right? Is it better to have growth that's every year, every month, all the time, the same linear growth? Is that better? It's more sustainable, for sure. Or is this explosive boom and bust, boom and bust, boom and bust? And if you listen to the Bitcoin maxis, they think it should be linear. There should be no inflation. There should be like almost none inflation. There should be no money printing. There should be no kind of correction. It should be just super linear. There should be no expansion possible. The Ethereum maxis, they say the same about like layer ones, right? It's the same. It's the same, just different. They don't like the booms that certain platforms create. And many times, these platforms that create the biggest booms are those that create the biggest busts. And it's a fundamental question. And of course, it can be super hurtful to those people that can't deal with the booms and busts. And I'm just someone who says, and I have this fundamental belief, just like the entire world functions around seasons. And that is exactly what has to happen during these business cycles. I live in Singapore. Singapore is not very good in farming. It's not only the space, it's limited space. It is because good farming needs seasons. And the best farming actually happens in those countries that have these really strong seasons. Now, I get it. You don't want to have like a super long winter, but you want to have seasons. You want stuff to cycle. And it's the same here. So yeah, while I understand a lot of people lose money with this, and I understand that it may sometimes be a negative for the individual, I think for the entire ecosystem, it is a net positive. And as long as we keep moving up. Difficult view, I get it. Do I want scams in the industry? No, I don't. I would love that everyone is legit. But I know it was not the last boom and bust, and we will get more. How's the sentiment right now? Like we discussed this during our catch up in the afternoon. Maybe share this a bit here. We discussed this a bit, and what are true signs right now of maybe we're bottoming out? Like, what are actual signs right now?
Yeah. The main thing we briefly touched on was people are tired of consuming content in any form. So you can see that it doesn't matter where you go. So in the crypto space, you have maybe 4 different platforms where the magic is happening. So this would be Discord, Telegram, Reddit, and YouTube. And of course, podcasting platforms, but let's just count them into the YouTube section. And if you look at engagement rates of the biggest influencers out there, so let's just say the biggest ones from last cycle, this would probably be Benjamin Cohen from Into the Cryptoverse. It would be Plan B. That could be Raw Paul. That could be Vitalik. Like really the big guys in the crypto space, where in the last cycle, they usually got 15, 25,000 likes on a tweet. Some of them barely managed to get 1,000 right now. And you can really see that on our company account as well, or on even CoinMarketCap or on other big accounts. Some of them struggle to get 100 likes.
How much
and no
do you
comments,
think that is Twitter? Like the issues that like a lot of people complain about Twitter, and how much do you think that's crypto, or do you think it's a mix?
I don't think it's a shadow ban Twitter issue or anything. I really think that people are just not interested in going and scrolling through Twitter right now. They're in this boredom mode where they rather look away and wait. Like a lot of them are in a frustrating situation. Everybody that entered in 2021 and in 2022 is in the red. So the portfolios are down. And I saw that happening in 2018 and 2019. It was the same. A lot of YouTubers quit their game. So in December, November, October, the whole video, the whole YouTube section was full with next altcoin that does 100x, next gem, this and that in 2017. In 3 months later, a majority of these YouTubers were not even producing videos anymore. And you can see the same thing right now. A lot of people are quitting, or their upload schedule is like once a month. Then you have like big podcasts. For example, the biggest in the industry is What Bitcoin Did. Their views are down 70 or 80%. They don't get any likes. They don't get any attention. On Telegram, chat rooms are super quiet. We have, in certain languages, we have chat rooms. There are no languages in a 24-hour, no messages in a 24-hour period. And usually back in the day, we had thousands of messages. And you can really see, as soon as there is a little bit of a pump, So as we have seen in the beginning and in the middle of January, suddenly people are returning. These jets are coming back to life. And I guess this, the thing that you touched on just now, 10 minutes ago, with seasons and cycles. This is, in my opinion, it's just human psychology. Like we are drawn to these crazy things, to these hype phases, and we like the shoulda, coulda, woulda. Oh my God, this did a 10x. Oh my God, 100x. You hear this story of this one friend that bought $100 of Shiba Inu and now it has $100,000. And they're like this story, they go around like wildfires. Like even I know a friend that has a friend and his cousin, and this guy. It happened to this guy, and this story it makes its way around social circles in no way, but it's a one in a million. But we are thriving on these stories, and we think we can do it again. Like it's like how lotteries work. There almost nobody wins the lottery, but if somebody wins, you are reading about it everywhere. And so I guess right now we have this. You had this great comparison. You said it's like a hard chewing gum. Like it's so tiring. It's so boring. There is no big news. The price does nothing. It's just ugh. And this is how I personally experience the current sentiment. And this is good because most bear markets end with an exhaustion of sellers and then boredom. And let's hope we have another month of boredom and then we finally can move on.
Yeah, I mean, I want to add here. I agree with you. I think the bear market ends with like a lot of exhaustion of both buyers and sellers, right? Otherwise, the price would move. And I want to just reiterate what I personally said, and I know like everyone has a bit of a different opinion there. What I said at the beginning of the year, end of last year, I'm not expecting much in 2023, and I also said everyone nods, right? Everyone says, yeah, totally. People are not aware what this means. This means exactly what you said: boredom, frustration, hope getting like crushed. Yeah, so I just, again, I'm gonna double down on that and triple down on that.
The average, what this means, maybe to put this in perspective, what this means is that a few of your friends that are not very deep into crypto, they're going to say, yeah, I hold a few bags on some exchange, but I probably it's never going to go up again. This is what they're going to say. And probably for people that are active in the space, what it means is, yeah, I used to invest a lot in crypto, but I'm not that interested in it anymore. And people are looking for other things and kind of tend to forget. And if nothing is happening anymore, usually then slowly the market is picking up. And then usually it is disbelief. If we are finally moving to the upside and the price is finally going up, everybody will say, no, 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 this is just a suckers rally. It's just a bear rally. It's just a bull trap. And like I experienced that for myself in 2018 and 2019. I kind of thought all the money I put in is probably gone. I had this last hope that finally it will recover, and I consumed a lot of hopium. I read a lot of books. A lot of podcasts, and it's kind of what kept me going. But in the end, when we finally moved into the direction of the 20K, I kind of had the belief this is going to probably be a double top, and then we move to the downside again. Like you can almost not believe that it's happening. It's human psychology is such a strange thing.
Yeah, yeah. Agree. Anything else on the market? Otherwise, let's use 10 minutes. Talk a bit about transparency report. Should be coming out either tomorrow or Thursday. Definitely this week. Yeah, it's for those that's the first time. We always do we do a really proper board report. And some people in the company always kind of laugh and say, why do we put so much effort into this? Because like our board report is like 104 pages and it's like super detailed, right? It goes into everything. And I mean, the main reason was that I just always think that's really good governance. It kind of really kind of is a good point to kind of reflect for everyone. But then the other thing is, I mean, and this is public news or a public info. We wanted to go public last year, and if you go public, you have to take this stuff very serious. Especially your past 3 years have to be done really well, and you really have to kind of look through all these things. So just it has to be done really well. And so that's why I'm putting a lot of effort into it. And from that board report, we then distill a team report out of that. The team report is still super detailed because it really goes into every department. We remove a few of the infos, but it's still super detailed. And then out of that comes a very readable transparency report. And that transparency report is normally 5 to 6 pages on as a Google Doc. This time it's a bit longer for the very simple reason because it's the entire kind of 2022 and then a bit of a preview for 2023 in the company. And so you can read all that. It starts out with me reflecting on the entire year from a decision-making standpoint. So I talk about results. I talk about where results come from. I talk about how results are a combination of 3 things, where you start from, the decisions, and then obviously bad luck, good luck. And then I reflect. I reflect on, did we have good luck? Did we have bad luck? I talk about this. I talk about a very interesting story that most people are not so aware of, which is that story of actually how we got massively lucky despite actually making good decisions. And that was the story around how in 2020, when we were looking for lending partners, no one wanted to work with us because people were so scared about the FUD that was spread around my persona and my past with 10x and with multi-level marketing from back in 2013. And people were so worried about that, right? And so no one wanted to work with us, especially Three Arrows, Alameda Research, and Genesis Trading didn't want to work with us. And at the end, that led us to working together with a small company here in Singapore called Sparrow. And we built that relationship and we worked together ever since. Obviously, fast forward, fun fact, anyone that works together with Three Arrows, Alameda, or Genesis Trading is pretty much bankrupt. And despite them, they actually started to they wanted to work with us then again in 2021 especially, and then in 2022 when it was just really, really clear that all these rumors were just absolute bullshit. But then at that point, it didn't make any sense for us anymore because we had Sparrow as a partner. There was no upside in working with someone else. So but it's fun fact, right? So many times the things that look really dire can actually be quite interesting. And so that's kind of what I start off with in the transparency report. And then I go into a very critical reflection of our OKRs. So objectives, key results, initiatives. And I actually go into a very critical reflection. And I talk about our goals on the cash flow side, on the goals on the product side, on the goals on the growth side, and on our goals on going public. And I talk about how actually last year we missed pretty much all our goals, or most of the goals. And I reflect on it very honestly, right? And this may be a shocker to some because they're like, wow, how does he admit that, they didn't reach their goals and everything? But I also want to highlight, and I mentioned that in there, that despite us missing a lot of these goals, our results are still absolutely incredible, right? We try to reach for the stars, we land, we try to reach for the moon, we land with the stars, and we're doing well. Our operational profit, last year, and the numbers, because I know exactly what Tech in Asia is going to do. Tech in Asia is going to go to ACRA here, which is the national filing here in Singapore. We have to file those things anyways. So they're going to get all the data. So I know they're going to report on this anyways, right? So they did last year. They're going to do this again. So I'm just going to go and give you the data so that I'm going to front run them. They can still hopefully publish something if they want to. That's fine. But I'm going to give it to you. And it's going to be all in there. So last year we did $30 million in operational profit. Now, at the end, because of crypto and everything going down, obviously we also lost in capital gains. So at the end, we did have a negative cash flow year from a total standpoint. But from an operational side, we were still doing well. So I just want to highlight that. So despite us missing all these goals, as a company, we're still doing well. I talk about our treasury. I talk about how we keep always 3 to 4 years in fiat, actual fiat, in the bank account of runway, right? So there's zero crypto exposure to that. If all stablecoins go bankrupt, if all exchanges go bankrupt, right, that shouldn't, that's going to hurt us, sure, because we're not going to make much money. We're going to probably lose a lot of our crypto treasury, but we are still going to have 3 to 4 years based on this year's forecast. So I'm budgeting this year's forecast already, right? So everything. That means we don't have to change our marketing strategy. We don't have to fire a single person. We can still hire. So this is still on the hiring. So I just want to explain that and that's the honest reflection in there, right? And I just want to be very clear. I criticize that, in my opinion, we could have done better on the marketing last year. We could have done better on the product last year. I criticize all that because it's an honest reflection, and the team knows that. That doesn't mean I'm super proud of what we achieved. Don't get me wrong. That still means I'm that kind of person that says, hey man, we did well, high five, let's step it up a notch. And I reflect on that. And so have a read there. It talks about the financials, talks about product, talks about how the team is structured, how we're structuring the team in different verticals now, right? How we're going into having obviously the enterprise side, having Cake side from a more retail perspective, which is what we're talking here, having the open source kind of birthday research side, talk about the licensing ideas. And so I really reflect on that. And then I talk a bit about what to expect for 2023. I talk about how we want to go and get this. We need to get a revamp of the app, be very user-friendly, have offers for our power users that kind of give them benefits and ties power users more to us. I talk about the team growth. We doubled in team last year from 80 to 160, and this year we're going to go from around 160 to 210. So we're growing, right? And so all these things. So I'm on the one hand, obviously, I want us to do way better. I want us to grow. I want us to be more aggressive. And then on the other hand, I'm really, really proud. And so what stuck out to you, Fabio? I mean, you had the entire team report. I don't know how much you read, how much you went through. Again, I asked the entire team to read through the public transparency report. So what goes to the public, that's what I ask every team member to read about. I don't force the team to read the entire how many pages, because I know this can be, for some, I mean, this is just a lot of reading. And so I don't know. But Fabio, anything that stuck out to you, anything that you feel like this is what you remember from the report? You also contribute from the community side, obviously.
Yeah, of course, what I can touch on the best is the community side and maybe a few things that stuck out to me just in general. Because I can remember very vividly, it was in autumn 2021. And then you personally and also company-wise, you made a few decisions that I personally disagreed, and a lot of people in the company disagreed as well. And I couldn't understand why you were taking those decisions. So one of the decisions was you personally went on live stream and you sold like a 10 million in Bitcoin at 65,000. And I was really at the time on this day, I remember this day, I couldn't understand this in any way because I was 100% certain we were going to 100K. And I know that also in the company finance, this was also discussed during a weekly town hall meeting that we sold a little bit of our treasuries into fiat. And I was like, my God, why are we not waiting until this is at 100K? Why are we not taking those profits? The company would have been so much better off. And now, in retrospect, it's crazy because this gave us the opportunities that we have right now. We're pretty much the last man standing. All of our major competitors are bankrupt. We have that runway of 4 to 5 years or 4 years in fiat that we just need to survive the winter. If we come out at the other side, which we definitely will because of the risk management, it's going to be great. And then there was a decision also during summertime where I kind of struggled with the decision. So this was you ordered all of our partners to return our lending funds, and this was before FTX, a few months before. And I was like, why are we giving up this part of the business? Because it was this is the product that I feel comfortable with the most personally, and I struggled to understand. Like, of course, it is, and initially we were not telling this to anybody, so the customers didn't know that we took these funds at home, and we were paying the customers out of our marketing budget. At one point, we said, "Hey, we did that, and we also lowered the rates because this was like it did cost us a lot of money." Also, this decision in retrospect, we couldn't have done it any better because after that, of course, Genesis went into troubles, FTX went into troubles, and we kind of made the right decision at the right time. But when these things happen, it is so hard to understand, and like these are tough decisions. And from a community perspective, from my own perspective, it was a challenging year, very, very challenging. I had a kind of a frustrating point especially during August and September, because I could really feel people capitulating,
Mm.
especially in August and especially in September. I had 10 days of vacation in August. And the day before I went to vacation, like really, I was completely done with work, with just the sentiment in the community, because it was so frustrating. People were just very tense, very aggressive. There was like on Twitter and on Telegram, there was so much negativity, and it didn't really matter what you said. These were just people that needed to voice their frustrations. And this was the first time for me working during a capitulation phase in community management in social media. And it's not a nice time. Like, it's so hard to keep a distance from this. Like, if you mentioned this on a tweet, on a personal tweet, sometimes you just mute the conversation. But if you're in community management, you kind of need to read
Yeah.
a lot of the comments, because some of them need to be deleted, especially if they are political, advertising, spam, and so on. And it was so hard for me to distance myself. And after that, since then, it's largely very constructive. Like, I personally feel in the Bitcoin community, Ethereum community, and DeFi chain community, these are the community I know the best. And in all of them, the sentiment is really constructive. I actually enjoy my time currently, because the people that the mercenaries, the traders, they left, and the people that remain are like the compressed essence. They want to build, they want to hodl, they want to be here for the long run. And yeah, for me, these things stuck out the most. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I yeah, appreciate that reflection. I think for me, it's really I try to always, I really try to always be very transparent and honest to everyone about what's going on, how I would approach things, how I would do things. And I know that, and you mentioned this a couple of times to me, right? Where you said, look, it's so crazy how many people you know who follow everything I say, and then they just do it completely different. And I remember that when you said, like, yeah, sorry, I let you talk.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something that is really dear to me, because like, Julian has great advice, and especially on his personal YouTube channel, and also, like, you have a private Discord group where you also speak a lot about finance. And you are super conservative in how you approach investments. You have these beta portfolios, all weather portfolio, with a yearly rebalancing. Like, this is a very conservative approach. And you have so many people that are following you, like more than 200,000 on YouTube, 100,000 on Twitter. And I met a lot of them personally, and they follow you, they really admire you, but in their investment strategy that they take, and I have this discussion so many times, is they go all in one industry, and sometimes in one coin, and they don't take any advice. They think, yeah, but I'm young, I need to do this additional risk taking, I need to make up for my years, I'm young, I can do more risk. 100% is not good enough. And you recommended a book to me that changed a little bit of my mindset. This Richer, Wiser, Happier,
Mm.
great stories of the best investors in the world. And sometimes you need to put it in perspective. The best
I
investors
actually
in the
didn't
world,
think you would like that book. Remember when I recommended that to you,
I
and I
hated it
said, yeah, yeah, I had assumed that, yeah.
because it went against everything I held true. And the best investors in the world, they make 15% a year over year, over a 30-year period. These are the best, considered the best investors in the world. And here in the crypto space, people will actually tell you 100% upside on an asset is not interesting for me. 10x on Bitcoin is not interesting for me. I want to have 100x. I want to have 1,000x, and I'm going to go all into this. No, I'm not going to lose my money, because this is the industry I follow. I know everything about this industry. And these arguments, I see them so many times. People that are really tribal and communal, they don't think diversification is nothing for me. It doesn't work. Like, these times are over. And like, one of the guys I follow currently is like a super conservative Swiss guy, Felix Zulauf. And he says, now, in the times where we are in right now, it's the time where the dinos, so the old people with gray hair, you need to listen to them, and they will shine. It's not, and I kind of tend to agree, and I really try to reposition myself to be like more risk averse, more conservative, more diversified. Even though you give up returns, the rule number one in investing is don't lose money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
survive.
sorry for the rant.
No, I love it. I mean, one other thing, and I think we haven't even shared this within the team, but I mean, it's fine to share. I mean, I never shared it because it didn't matter. Like if you had asked me probably 2 months ago, we actually had a lot of our fiat or dollars in USDC and USDP, right? So when this entire stuff with Binance and BUSD and Silvergate especially, so it was actually Silvergate when this stuff came out, I still remember, like, again, it's like this don't die, right? So it's like this risk averse first. And then Silvergate being the main bank for Circle and being for Paxos, I instantly was like, okay, we need to clear this. Like, let's de-risk, right? And so that's why now we have, again, I don't want to say anything wrong here, but I think, except for our, so we have no material exposure outside of our USDC and USDT that we need for operational reason. And we need some of those. We need to have exposure there. It's just impossible because otherwise our customers cannot have speed there. But I think aside of that, we have no material exposure. And it's just that and so, it was so interesting when you mentioned when we were so proactive in pulling customer funds back onto the platform, right? And calling everyone, right? And saying, hey, we want to get the lending services back, right? The lending everything back, right? And we're like, okay, we're gonna tell the customers when everything is back that this is now it's back, right? So that they know all everything is back. And then we told everyone because we're like, hey, we're pulling this, we're paying it out of our pocket. Zero, as little risk as possible first. And same was on the stable coins. Again, that doesn't mean that same thing, right? It doesn't mean that USDC or USDP or BUSD or someone has an issue. It just it just means as a good decision maker, you need to cover your downside first. I would love to see. I'll let you go first. Can I ask a question? The question I would love to see from investors, right, would be which coin that's not a stable coin has the lowest downside risk right now? That's the question. It's not, which coin can do 10x or 20x or 50x. It's the wrong question, right? It's always the wrong question. People just don't want to hear this because if you go just for upside, buy a lottery ticket. Lottery tickets, 1 million X upside. 1 million X. I promise you, I don't think you're going to find any coin right now that's going to deliver 1 million X to you, right? So buy a lottery ticket, the highest upside. But that's not the question. The question is, what's the downside? What's the probability of that? Fabio?
I would say in crypto, but it's probably Bitcoin, besides the stable coins. You could make the argument that ETH leveled up to be a blue chip again, and both of them, historically, it was Bitcoin. So probably this is the simpler argument to make. Outside of crypto, which you should diversify, probably the lowest risk right now is gold and cash.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. But nobody knows the future, and in a liquidity crisis, all assets sell off. Just maybe one thing that on trust. So from a company perspective, it's like in a relationship. Trust takes years to build, and it just takes one moment to destroy it forever. And both in a relationship and with a company, because you get disappointed, or you make one mistake in the relationship, a big mistake, or as a company, you make one big mistake, you hurt the trust of your customers, or you hurt the trust of your partner. It's probably never going to come back. If the company cheats on you, or if your partner cheats on you, this is the end of the relationship, and this is what you never want to have, neither in a relationship nor in a relationship with a company. So I'm very happy that we kind of even improved on a trust side.
Yeah, and I hope that we are as transparent as possible on everything we do, on our decisions, on putting you first as a customer. So yeah, I think it's key. Cool. Fabio, with that, yeah, happy Valentine's Day to you and your wife. Yeah, it's your last one alone. So enjoy it. It's never going to be the same again. So
Thank you. Same to you.
thank you. And everyone else, have a beautiful Tuesday. Thank you so much for being with us. Very much appreciate it. If you're not a customer yet, then check out cakedefi.com. We're also hiring. So check out cakedefi.com/careers. And otherwise, I hope you're tuning back in next time, either on Twitter Space, on YouTube. Follow us, subscribe, like, share, all the fun parts. And then with that, I hope I see you next time. Thank you so much, everyone. Very much appreciated. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Happy Valentine's.